Let's say it's a warm Sunday afternoon and you're in your kitchen and you forget a glass full of ice on the counter. Sit down on the sofa, put on a film, and 2 hours later you wander back in. What do you find? The ice has melted. All the ice is water now. Nobody touched anything, yet something has changed. Now think about that packet of strawberries you bought on Friday. They were perfect. Red, glossy, fragrant. By Monday, again, without a single hand having touched them, the strawberries are moldy, the bottom of the panet is wet, and that sweet aroma has turned into a stinky whiff. In both cases, the universe has done what it always does. It has marched towards disorder. Physicists call it entropy. And today we're going to discover why this concept, born in the thermodynamic labs in the 19th century, explains the deep nature of fresh produce business better than any other, and not only because our products are perishable. I'm David Del Pino and this is Fresconomics. Welcome to the fresh produce business, a world where uncertainty is the only constant and volatility shapes every decision. Every day, remarkable people navigate this chaos with skill and courage. Join me as we explore the hidden logic of this industry to decode what others call unpredictable. It was the year 1865, and the German physicist Rudolf Clausius, after years spent studying steam engines and heat transfer, decided he needed a brand new word to describe something he had been observing his entire scientific career. He chose the term entropy, a word that comes from the Greek and means transformation or turning inward. Clausius had stumbled onto something profound. In a closed system, energy always flows from ordered states toward disordered ones, never the other way around. We can look at it like this. The world is like a tidy room that the moment you stop paying attention to it will untidy itself over time. But you'll never see a messy room spontaneously tidy up itself. To create order, you have to invest energy. To maintain order, you have to keep investing energy. Disorder, on the other hand, is free. The universe throws it in at no charge. Those of us who are parents know this all too well. About the messy room, I mean. So the second law of thermodynamics, as this principle is formally known, tells us that the entropy of the universe always increases. It is such a fundamental law that the astrophysicist Arthur Eddington went so far as to say that if anyone presented him with a theory that contradicted the second law, well, it didn't matter how elegant it was simply wrong. Now then, what does any of this have to do with growing tomatoes or selling lettuces? Well, an awful lot more than it might seem at first glance. Allow me an analogy that I think captures the essence of the problem. Imagine that your fresh produce business is one of those sandcastles you build with your children right at the water edge on a beautiful beach day. You built it with effort, perfect towers, well-defined walls, an elegant moat, but you are on the beach and the waves keep rolling in. Each breaking wave erodes the walls a little and drags sand out of the moat. There is no malice in the waves, they simply do what the waves do. And if you sit back to admire your castle and do nothing, within a few hours there'll be nothing left but a shapeless mound. To keep the castle standing, you have to be constantly rebuilding, reinforcing, adding sand where it's been lost. You spend energy without pause just to hold on to what you already had. Not to improve, mind you, simply not to get worse. This is the reality of the fresh produce sector. The waves battering us are many. A shifting climate, pests that mutate, volatile markets, staff turnover, information that expires, processes that decay, you name it. And our castle, our business, demands a constant effort of reconstruction just to stay upright. But here comes the crucial nuance. Not all sandcastles are built equally close to the water. Not all businesses are equally entropic. And the fruit and vegetable sector, thanks to a pileup of very specific characteristics, is built practically on the shoreline itself. So let's talk about the waves that we have to endure in our business. The first and most obvious source of entropy, the first of those waves if you wish, in our sector is the very nature of the product. A piece of fruit or a vegetable is quite literally a living organism in the process of decay. From the moment it's separated from the mother plant, its biological clock begins an irreversible countdown. This creates a fundamental difference with practically every other sector. If you make, let's say, screws or anything like metal parts or plastic products, you can store them indefinitely. If you produce furniture, it can sit on a warehouse for months. Even agricultural products such as wheat or corn with a low moisture and stable cell structure can hold out for years in the right silos. But time is working against us. Every minute that passes, the product loses value. Biological entropy works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No breaks and no holidays. As I explain in the book Fresconomics, this singularity makes our sector resemble paradoxically the electricity business more than traditional agriculture. Just as electricity that isn't consumed the moment it's generated is lost, our products have an extremely narrow window of viability. What we don't sell today is worth less tomorrow. The day after, perhaps, nothing at all. And the second great wave of entropy comes from the very nature of the production process. Growing fruit and vegetables means submitting yourself to the forces of nature in a way that few economic sectors can even comprehend. Think about what it means to depend on the weather. A late frost can destroy in a single night what took months to build. A heat wave can scorch the tomato flowers and leave you with no fruit set. A hailstorm turns a perfect harvest into a field of write-offs in a matter of minutes. And let's not even get started on the torrential rains that drown the roots of your plants or the wind that tears the structures apart. On top of this comes the pests and diseases, those tiny agents of chaos that are forever evolving. Just when you think you got a pathogen under control, a new strains appear. Just when you've mastered one pest, another moves into its niche. It's a permanent arms race against organisms whose sole reason for being is to thrive at the expense of your crop. And then there are the crops that we forced out of their natural season, using greenhouses, tunnels, heating, and 1,000 other technologies. Here the paradox intensifies. We've created artificial systems to fight against nature, but those very systems require constant maintenance. The more sophisticated the technology we deploy, the more potential points of failure we introduce, the more room we leave for entropy to do its work. And on the third wave, there is a kind of entropy that gets little attention, but is crucial in our sector: the decay of information. In most businesses, information has a reasonably long shelf life. Last month's market data is still relevant. A competitor study from a year ago can still guide your decisions. In fresh produce, information expires almost as fast as the product itself. Yesterday's price, it's worth nothing if we cannot anticipate the market volatility caused by volumes arriving from another producing region. And what use is the cultivation and harvest plan you drew a month ago if a pest has completely rewritten the scenario? What good is a customer's demand forecast if a competitor has shown up with a better price drift in demand? This information volatility has a profound consequence. Decisions can't lean on accumulated knowledge the way they can in other sectors. As the old trade wisdom puts it, no 2 years are ever alike in this business. Every campaign is a fresh experiment. Every week is a different scenario. Every day, a new game in which the rules can change halfway through. The information you need to navigate this system is constantly going out of date. I like the way the philosopher Karl Popper draws a distinction between closed and open systems. Closed systems are predictable. Open ones are defined by contingency, human agency, and unforeseeable outcomes. The fresh produce sector is radically open, shaped by the climate, by international markets, by political decisions, by changing consumer habits, by food trends, by healthy lifestyle, and many more. And that takes me to the last wave, the social entropy. Perhaps the most underrated source of entropy is the one that flows out of human interactions. The fresh produce sector is extraordinarily labor intensive, and especially intensive in low-skilled labor. We all know that. And this creates a very particular dynamic. High staff turnover is endemic. Every new person who joins needs training. Every person who leaves takes tacit knowledge with them, those small details written down in no manual, but which make the processes actually work. It's as if we are forever emptying and refilling a glass of water. No matter how much you invest in filling it, the system leaks. In that sense, the sociologist Emil Durkheim spoke of anomie to describe the state of social disintegration that sets in when norms weaken. In a way, fresh produce companies live in a permanent state of that anomie, but of a state of mitigated anomie. The processes we establish tend to degrade not out of malice, but through the simple turnover of the people running them and the volatility of the environment. Instructions are forgotten. Shortcuts get normalized. Exceptions become the rule. How many times have you lived through this? You set up a process, document it, roll it out, train the staff, and it works for a while, and then suddenly, you discover that nobody follows it the way it has been designed anymore. There was no conscious decision to abandon it. Social entropy has simply done its quiet work. Let's take a look at the consequences of living in a fundamentally entropic business. When you stack up all these sources of disorder, you start to understand why, in this sector, the solutions that work for a while stop working. Why established processes degrade gradually. Why something that looked like a stable system suddenly needs to be rebuilt from scratch. This has profound implications for our management. In low entropy sectors, the effort goes mainly into improvement, doing things better and better. In our sector, an enormous share of the effort goes simply into maintenance, from stopping things from getting worse. It's like the difference between climbing an escalator that has stopped and climbing one that's going down. In the first case, every step takes you closer to the top. In the second, just to avoid sliding backwards, you already have to be walking. To actually move forward, you have to run. And we have to admit that sometimes it feels like a modern restaging of the course of Sisyphus. This reality explains many of the sector's cultural traits that sometimes baffle outsiders. Why that obsession with the short term? Because the long term is too uncertain. Why that resistance to grand strategic plans? Because reality dismantles them before they have time to ripen. Why that outsized importance given to specific individuals over a process-driven approach? Because in an entropic business environment, only people can adapt fast enough. Everything in our business is contextual. The good news is that entropy, though unavoidable, can be managed. Physicists Know that the only way to reduce entropy of a system is to feed energy into it from the outside. In our business context, that energy is everywhere. You only have to watch the professionals of the sector at work to see it. But let's look at where it's most useful to apply all that boundless energy. The first place to apply all that energy is on redundancies. In an entropic sector, systems with no backup fail tragically. You need reliable suppliers and alternative ones, surplus productive capacity, more trained staff that you strictly need. This looks inefficient through the lens of classical industrial optimization, but it's the only way to absorb the shocks that will inevitably arrive. The second place is that you have to lean on simplification, or rather, on fleeing unnecessary complexity. The more complex a system, the more points of failures it has. The fresh produce companies that endure tend to have operating systems models that are simpler than how they look from the outside. Needless sophistication is a luxury that entropy doesn't forgive. Let's jump to the third. We have to be aware that much of our time and energy must go into constant communication. In an environment where information expires quickly, a flow of fresh information is vital. The companies that run best are the ones that have turned internal communication into an obsessive habit. Frequent short meetings, open channels, information shared in real time. And fourth, knowledge in our business is deeply contextual. It can't live solely in manuals and procedures. It needs to sit in the heads of people who understand the context. Circumstances and ours change constantly, carry more weight than whichever rule happens to be on the books. In that sense, training people isn't a cost. It's the most anti-entropic investment you can make. This is one of the reasons, among others, that ours is still a people business. And finally, acceptance. There is a certain serenity that comes from accepting the entropic nature of the sector. You're not going to eliminate chaos, you're going to surf it. The veteran professionals of the sector have that quality, a paradoxical calm in the face of the coming storm, which comes from knowing that there is always a storm. It's a way of saving energy so you can aim it at the right moment, at correcting course. And there is something strangely beautiful about working against entropy. Every day that your business keeps running is a small victory over the forces of the universe pushing towards disorder. Every tomato that reaches the consumer in good condition, every process that stays operational, every team that holds together is an act of resistance. It's like what the biologist and writer Lewis Thomas wrote, that life itself is an anti-entropic phenomenon. Living organisms create local order at the cost of increasing the disorder of the whole, yes. In a sense, we in the produce business do exactly the same. We create little islands of order in a sea of chaos, feeding humanity in the process. So, the next time you feel that everything is falling apart, that the processes are degrading, the information is expiring, the staff are leaving, and the systems are failing, remember, it is not your fault. It's entropy. And you, like all of us who work in this sector, are professional fighters against the second law of the thermodynamics. And that, my friends, is no small thing. And that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I invite you to subscribe to Fresconomics on your favorite platform. You can find me on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and even on YouTube. And remember to share it with others. Help me connect with the community of professionals in the fresh produce industry. Although it may take a while, I promise to respond to any questions, contributions, or suggestions you may send to web@daviddelpino.com. And of course, you can also visit my blog at daviddelpino.com, where you'll find out how to get a copy of the book Fresconomics, along with articles and additional content. Until next time, take care and try to enjoy this crazy business.